Are you ready for me, John?
Yeah, go ahead.
Welcome everyone to our March Striper Club meeting, the Smith Mountain Striper Club meeting. As you can see, we've got a great crowd here tonight, and I want to thank everyone for showing up. We've got Striper Club members. We have non-Striper Club members here. If you would, if it's your first time, if you've never been to a Smith Mountain Striper Club meeting, if you just kind of slide your hand up real quick, that's outstanding. Welcome, welcome, welcome. First thing I want to do is kind of introduce some folks. My name's Chad Gilmore. I'm the president of the Smith Mountain Striper Club. That doesn't really mean anything. John Anderson, back there in the blue shirt, he's the vice president. John Anderson is the one that's responsible for that incredible newsletter that comes out every month. We get other Striper Club newsletters. Ours is the best by far. And that's the reason right there, John Anderson. Pat McClanagan, where are you, Pat?
Right here.
Pat back there, he's our treasurer, he's taking the money. Candy Sable, she's back there in that wretched Tennessee sweatshirt. Not that she's wretched, it's just that sweatshirt is. Candy's our secretary / web stuff. Couple members that aren't with us tonight, Tim Barr and who am I missing? Joel. But that's the board. And again, we're just so excited to have everybody here tonight. Tonight's going to be really full of great information. Dan's here to give the 2025 striped bass results, and Nathan will be giving the results of the 2-year summer mortality study. So I'm not going to take up a lot of time because they've got the important information. So the second thing I want to do now, for you folks that have never been to a Striper Club meeting and really don't know what the Striper Club is about, this information's for you. We do this at the end of the year at our Christmas dinner. We kind of recap what we've accomplished throughout the year. So right now, if you take a look, this is fancy technology in the hands of a redneck. So you don't know what's going to happen. Yeah, it don't work. Anyway, Striper Club right now. Striper Club memberships at about 200 and growing. When we took Striper Club back over after COVID and everybody could meet and get together again, the membership was at 100 or less. So membership has really grown a lot, and we've done a lot of great things. Two things that we do: we're involved with DWR. We'll talk about some of those initiatives. And the other thing that we're really community driven as well, and we'll talk about some of those. Let's see. We have meetings just about every month on Friday nights. We do not meet in June and July, or July and August. Check the website for that. But we do meet 9 or 10 times a year. We have fishing-related topics, striper-related topics, how-tos, things like that. Really good information from not only our club members, guides come. We've had some folks, Mr. Greenlight, Pete showed up. We had some guys that made some fishing rods. They've shown up before. So a lot of products, a lot of techniques, a lot of things related to striper fishing. There's a wealth of information in this club. I urge you to stick around afterwards. I'm sure there were a lot of lies told before the meeting, so there will be a lot more lies told after the meeting. So stick around, keep your ears open, and you will learn a lot from this club. So just to talk about the DWR initiatives, and Dan's standing back there, so he can fact check me, and he can also let you guys know. So some of the things that we do, that we have been doing with DWR, we assist in the stocking. For years, DWR, they back the truck up to a ramp or some sort of public access, and they dump the fingerlings. About that big, Dan? Inch and a half?
1 to inch and a half, inch to inch and a half.
They're about that big, and they dumped them on the shoreline. So you can imagine what happened to some of those fingerlings, right? So at Dan's urging and the volunteers from the Striper Club, we provide some boats and some manpower, some hands, and these stripers, the striper fingerlings now are being stocked out in open water, and it's called pelagic stocking. And Dan can probably shake his head, yes, it has probably helped the first year survival rate of those fingerlings dramatically. So if you're seeing and catching some of the small stripers, that's a great sign for our future, right? So the stocking's one thing that we're involved with yearly. The second initiative that we're involved with is the otolith bone. You catch a fish, you cut the head off, you put a piece of paper in the fish's mouth. You tell us what date you caught it and how long the fish is. Dan takes the bone out of the head. It's a little bone about the size of your thumbnail. It has rings on it. He looks at it under a microscope. He tells you how old that fish is and whether it's growing along its intended path. Twice a year, maybe 3 times a year, we do those processing, and it's a clean, fun, does not smell bad at all. I urge you to volunteer. It's a great time. You probably want to have a bag of Cheetos with you while you're doing it. It won't turn your stomach at all. It's a great time. So the otolith bone, that's huge data for Dan. Dan does gill netting 3 times a year, October, November, December. He gets information that lets him know if that first year recruitment, that's the growing of that first year stocking, if things are going well. They also get some bigger fish. He takes fish heads from that. Gary, if you would just raise your hand. I saw him walking. Gary is our liaison with Dan. Anything that has to go along with Dan, Gary Harrison coordinates that, and he has been instrumental in gathering the volunteer base. Let's see, what else are we doing with DWR? Oh, the Angler Diaries, which we do have to say was a big success this year after we pounded you guys and gals over the head for all of 2025. I got to tell you, you showed up and you showed out. I want to say we probably had, Dan, would you have over 40 striped bass diaries this year?
Right around that number.
So great job to the club and anybody else that contributed to that. We have 2 ways that you can do this striped bass angler journal. There's the old school carbon paper one, and we also have a digital version. The link for this is in our newsletter, and it's something that you can fill out on your phone as your boat is raising in the lift. It's very easy. One thing I do want to say, when you fill the form out, especially the digital form, put numbers in there. Like if you catch a 24-inch fish, put 24. Don't write the word 24. If you fish for 6 hours, put the numeral 6 in there. Don't put words in there. It helps Dan out a lot. Anything else on the digital version? Got to have numbers, right?
Yeah.
Okay. We did some winter tagging. That went kind of along with your study a little bit. Some tagging of some fish. That was another initiative that went along with that. So you can see we're really involved with DWR, but we're also very involved in our community. And I'll name 3 or 4 things that we've done in our community that we feel like are helping us help other people.
What are you doing here?
We're involved with Real Connections for Kids. If you're not familiar with Real Connections for Kids, it started out as a sponsored event by Smith Mountain Striper Club. After the first year, we found out really quickly that thing was much bigger than anything that the Striped Bass Club could hold on to. So that has kind of veered off on its own. Still a lot of support monetarily and volunteer-wise go toward Real Connections. And I'm not sure if you can see it, but there are a lot of kids holding a lot of fish, and it causes a lot of smiles. So we're extremely proud of that. Second thing that we do, we're involved in the Bedford Youth Days, now known as the Bedford Fishing and Outdoor Experience. Right, Dallas? Does that sound about right? Bedford Youth Days.
It's my opinion.
Another initiative that we're at the end of the year, we take 5 local nonprofits and we donate to those. So we just want to paint the real full picture of what we're not just a bunch of guys and gals that get together and fish. We're making a difference with DWR, and we're also making a difference in our community. And we couldn't do it without the help of a lot of people in this room. So I want to thank you, and if you would, just give yourselves a hand. Thank you. The other thing that we're real excited about tonight is announcing that the Striper Club is going to be launching a preservation committee. And the benefit and what our thoughts are behind this preservation committee. The Striper Club used to have a preservation committee years ago, and it knocked on some doors in Richmond. It knocked on some doors with our local legislators, and kind of help those folks in those positions understand what the striper fishery meant to Smith Mountain Lake, not only to the fishermen, but to the businesses and the revenue that it generates. Well, it's time to do that again. All right, that preservation committee kind of died off, but we're going to relaunch that. And we've reached out. John Anderson's he's going to spearhead that. Next week, he'll be going to Richmond on Wednesday and Thursday. He'll be meeting with the wildlife and something outdoors committee. Does that sound about right? He'll be meeting with them, and then he'll actually be going to the DWR board meeting on Thursday. And so we want everybody to understand that this preservation committee is going to be really based upon the voice of the Smith Mountain Lake anglers. It's obviously going to have some striped bass initiatives to it, but it's going to be really as the voice of Smith Mountain anglers. So bass fishermen, crappie fishermen, cat fishermen, we really want to get your ideas and what is going to be the best for this lake. John has already had some really great conversations, and I'm probably going to butcher this guy's name. Mike Bednarski?
Yes.
Close. And so there have been some really good connections made there. So we look forward to what's going to go on there. John will have updates on that. I believe, John, that's about all I have, right?
Yes, sir.
I tried to go through it quickly because we want to turn it over to Dan and then Nathan. And then at the end, we were going to have 3 door prizes, but it looks like we have 4 or 5 door prizes now. We've got the raffle. And how many kids do we have here tonight? I know we've got my man back there in the jersey. Got a kid there. There we go. If you don't win a door prize, we got plenty up here. So I don't want you leaving empty-handed, all right? So that's all for me. We appreciate you guys. Enjoy the information. Thank you. I couldn't get it to work, so good luck.
He just said he handed me this, but it doesn't work, so.
Thanks.
Thanks for coming. And I'm just doing the same thing I do every year. I'm not really kind of deviating. Usually, when there wasn't somebody else speaking, usually I would just kind of give you an update of what we're seeing the previous year and talk about another little side project or something that people are talking about that's current. Tonight I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go straight through my kind of update of what we've collected last year.
How about a drum solo, man?
You don't want to hear that. No, not good.
Come on.
We won't have time because I want to make sure Nathan has enough time to do his. So just going to stick with the data from last year, what I think it means. And I think this might be one of the first years that I'm not going to say raise your hand and ask a question as I go along because we don't have enough time. Used to, I was the only one talking that night, so we could spend half the night here doing it, but I don't want to do that and knock Nathan out of his time up there. So with that, I'll go ahead and start. All right. Okay, starting off with the diaries that Chad had mentioned, and this is information collected last year from the diaries that were turned in, And I just got one tonight. Obviously, the data from that diary is not entered in there. So when you do these, I have to get them back in a timely manner. I have written on here on the paper copies. This is a paper copy if you don't do electronically. I have a January 30th deadline on there. But I have to get those in a decent amount of time to have everything kind of figured up. But I was told to stay over kind of on this side. Is that still correct, John? Okay. Because of the cameras, I'm supposed to focus over here. Does it? That's right. I'm supposed to point back there when I do that. Okay. What this really is supposed to be is all the fish that were caught and entered in these diaries. They're plotted out. So essentially, people last year caught more fish in the 27-inch range than any other size group. That's what was turned in. And the red part means those fish were actually harvested by the anglers, and then the blue, they were released. So what this does is gives me every year a basic look at what the size structure is out on the lake. So in 2025, most of the fish we had out there were in the mid to upper 20s, which is usually pretty good. That's pretty good fishing when you're catching, 25 to 30-inch fish as opposed to 18 to 20-inch fish. But that's what the size structure of the population looked like last year. Just to give you an idea of, it does change over time. It doesn't look that way every year. So just go back a few years. 2022 there on the left. Looks a lot different than what it did this year. A lot more smaller fish. I will note that, let's see if I can get that. Can you see that pointer at all from where you guys are at? Okay. If you can't, then just imagine. Going back a few years, there was a big spike of fish here, if you notice, and that's from a 2020 year class that I'll probably bring up a few times tonight, because there's stuff going on with that group of fish, but that group right there is from 2020, and a few years later, those are most of our big fish in here. Catch rates, and when I say catch rates, this is how long, basically, how many hours did it take for you, the angler, to catch a fish on average? So overall, if we just look at 20-inch fish, the line going downhill actually means it's taking you less time to catch a fish. So the lower on that scale it is, the better the fishing was that year. A little bit of the oscillation up and down is we have different people dropping in and out of the program. So some years are really good. A couple good anglers will come in and jack it up, and a couple good anglers leave, and more people that are just getting started. So a little bit of that oscillation is just participants, and some of it is just years too. Some years with the weather and everything, fishing's just better than others. The main take home on this one is that basically for the last 15 years, generally the catch rates have been getting better and better. The last couple years they've turned and started going back up. So it's taken a little bit longer the last couple years for you to catch a fish, but it's been pretty good overall for quite some time. Moving on to 30-inch fish. So this is 30 inches above, and I've had a number of people ask me this year, said I've caught a lot of fish, the fishing seemed to be pretty good, but I'm not getting the bigger fish this year. Why not? Is anybody else catching those? Well, for the last, since last 5 years, it's been steadily going up. So take out that 1 year, it's pretty much a straight line from 2020 to 2025. It's taken a lot longer now. I don't know if it's almost, it's more than twice as long now to catch a fish than it was 4 or 5 years ago of that size. So while the general fishery for less than 30 inches has been getting better pretty much over time, it's been going the opposite direction for bigger fish. And this little box right here, I just kind of highlighted how it's been going up, taking longer in recent years, and I'll get back to that later on in the presentation. kind of converting over from diary data to what we do with our sampling. This is, the blue lines are the same graph that I showed right off on the very first slide, except for I just don't have them marked, caught and released, but I added our gillnet data. So these green bars down here on this end is what we collect when we do our gillnet collections. And our gillnets are designed to catch smaller fish. Fish up to 2 or 3 years old, with most of them being 1 year old. Those are our target fish. We're not trying to target these guys here. And we're not targeting because you folks are providing all that information for us. You're telling us what's out there with the diaries, what the population looks like, and you're also collecting striped bass heads for me. So I get ages off of bigger, older fish, and I get a good look at what the population looks like. I do not need those fish. I don't have to catch them in my nets because you folks supply all that data. Most other places in the country, they have to use bigger nets, catch a lot more big fish. That little picture on the front of the deck is our sampling down in Leesville. We got to set bigger nets for fish down there because we don't have anybody down there giving us fish heads and collecting diaries. We don't know what that population looks like unless we set those bigger nets to catch them. In Smith Mountain Lake, we can just target those small fish. What that's giving me is an idea of how the fish survived from the previous year or two stocking. So that's primarily what we're doing using that gillnet data for, is to see what our recent stockings look like. Over time, this is for 1.5 old fish, which is our target fish that we're collecting in our gill nets. So you look back for the last 25 years, that green line right there in the middle is kind of the average of all those years. You can tell that it's not very smooth. It jumps up and it jumps down and goes all over the place. Some years we have really good catches of 1-year-olds, and other years we don't. Let's see. This is how many we stock each year. That doesn't look like anything like that. Those two are very different. So we stock that number, but that doesn't mean that's always what's going to be out there. There's a lot of things that dictate how well those fish survive. I kind of have these 3 years right here circled just to make some points. It's 2018, 19, and 17, 18, and 20. Just to talk about how some of this works as we go through. So just kind of keep an eye on those years. This is the graph on the right that I just showed you. Let's see. Let me go back. Those were the stocking years right there. That's our gill netting on the right for 1-year-olds, and it doesn't look the same. Those are those 3 dots. Going back to the stocking, there's 3 high years where we stocked a lot of fish, and according to our net data, those right there, 2 of those years were good, but 1 of them wasn't very good at all, even though we stocked a lot of fish. I also track these fish kind of longer term. The one on the left, I'll look at that. I'll track a year class for several years, and it gives me a little bit better idea how those fish did. I don't want to wait 3 or 4 years to find out how a stocking did, so I'm going to use the 1-year-old fish. And it does help me get a little bit better reading looking 3 years out, but I really need to know those right off the bat if it did well the previous year or not. Tracking them for 3 years, I got those same 3 circled. That 2018 year class is still bad, it didn't change. These 2 swapped order, and the reality is that's probably more accurate than that one over there, because that 2020 year class that I talked about early was the biggest one we've ever had based on a bunch of different metrics, what we caught in our gill nets, how many fish we've got back. When we do our aging, that we're at that age, there's just a lot of those fish back in 2020, I think. You remember there's a gentleman in here that he started fishing right after that and was catching a crap load of small fish. And since then, he's complained because he's not catching hundreds and hundreds of those fish like he did that first year, because that year class was just tremendous. Just a flashback again, stocking rates versus our, what was actually produced. We have this stocking rate that's a lot more uniform than this one. That's just to give you an idea that what we put in the water doesn't necessarily mean that's what we're getting back out of it. Moving on to growth. This bottom line is 2-year-old fish that we collected in the lake, and this top line are 3-year-old fish. The dashed lines for each one of those are the goal. That's what we would where we'd like those fish to be growing each year. With all the conditions, they're getting the right food. That's their potential. That's what they should be doing if everything's where it should be. Concentrating on the 2-year-old fish, they actually exceeded our expectations in 2000 from 16 to about 18. They did really well. And then we were starting to get too many fish again. It's that 2020 year class that just kind of blew up the system on us. They're back up to where we want them to be this year. The 3-year-olds got down way low, but they're starting to head back up the right direction. These arrows are in here just to kind of make a point. If a fish starts off growing slow in his life, that carries on. If he loses ground right out of the gun when he starts off, he's going to have lost ground his whole life. He can't make that back. So these arrows just kind of highlight this group of fish in 2017, a year later, they're still exceeding things. And then you go over here where this one was really low, a year later is the 3-year-old, it's also low. So if you start these fish off real bad with poor growth, they're not going to do well. If they start off well, then they have the potential to be getting bigger later on. Moving up to 4-year-old fish, you notice this is even getting more exaggerated. That's because good growth versus bad growth multiplies and then it expands and grows even higher, lower each year of growth. The 4-year-old fish, those were really going downhill for quite a while, and it's that 2020 year class that really started driving things right here again. But this last couple years, it started to uptick, so that's starting to get a little bit better. Is a kind of, instead of just picking it out year by year, 2, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, this is all the fish that we aged from last year. The blue ones are the fish that we collected out of our nets. All those red marks are the ones that were collected by the public. So again, you can see where there's a whole lot more red dots on there than there are blue. And most all the area over here in these older age groups, I don't know if you can see it back there. Those numbers are pretty small. For those that you can't see, this is 15 years old here. Clear down to 0 here to give you a scale, because I'm sure a lot of you probably can't see it. So there's 15 years worth of ages that are available on here. This shaded part doesn't show up real good on the screen, but this is where the average line should be going right through the middle of that. Our current growth that we have right now, because it had been kind of poor the last 5 years, this dashed line is where our average was for 2025. Where we want it to be is up here. And I'll give you an example. Let's see. Okay. To kind of take the noise out of that, if you just look, now on this one, that very last number is an age 9, and I didn't take it all the way out to 15, just if you can't see that. For 2025, this is our blue line, how fish were growing. The red line is where we want them to be. That's our goal. That's where we want the fish to be if they're eating correctly. The green one is on there. It's just to tell you what Leesville is, just so you know that I'm not making up stories. Fish can grow that well if they're well fed throughout their life. And what kind of difference does it make if fish don't grow well? Well, you don't see as many big fish. So coming back to that slide I said earlier that I was going to bring back, I have a 30-inch line here where those 2 stars are on. They're on that 30-inch mark that I was talking about earlier. under the current growth that we saw last year, it's taken a fish about 8.5 years to hit that 30-inch mark. Where he should be hitting it if he was growing well is way back here at about 5.5 years. So that's one of the reasons you're not seeing as many big fish, because it's taken them so long to get there. The longer it takes them to get there, the more they die. Nathan will talk about that. They're being caught and harvested. They're dying of natural causes. So the numbers that are available to get larger decrease every single year. The faster they can get there, the more they're going to get in those bigger sizes. And when the growth isn't good, a lot of them will never make 30 inches. I'll go back to this. We've got a 15-year-old fish here that's just making 30 inches. And then there's a whole crap load of them in here that are old fish and aren't 30 inches, and they'll never make it. They're just off to a bad start. They're stunted out. Getting into the shad data, this is what we've been collecting in our electrofishing for shad for a number of years now. And really the only thing I really want to stand out here is how the composition between threadfin, which is this maroon color, versus the lighter blue, which are the gizzard shad. So we hadn't had gizzard shad for about 10 years, or I'm sorry, threadfin shad for about 10 years before 2019. So it was all gizzards back in here for quite a ways. Threadfins were introduced and they started showing up, and they started really taking over most of the forage biomass out there. They outcompete the gizzard shad in a lot of the spawning areas. So when the threadfin numbers get really high, we lose our gizzard shad production. So they were basically the majority of that forage base out there for a long time. And then with the winter kills that we had the last 2 years, well, last winter, it really knocked it back. So the gizzards are the primary forage out there now, and I expect after this winter, it's going to be mostly all blue again next year. Kind of matching up growth of a striped bass with a gizzard shad. This is what we're seeing over time, just to show you a correlation that we see. When the adult gizzard shad numbers are high, the growth is good. When the adult gizzard shad numbers, these blue bars, I keep forgetting you guys can't see those legends on there anymore. It looked good on the computer, you know, a foot from my face. I didn't realize that it was not going to be very legible from the audience at your distance. But in any case, this red line is the growth of a 3-year-old striped bass. And the blue lines, the blue bars, are the amount of adult gizzard shad that we collect each fall. And you can kind of see the two of them go up and down together. This last bar right here, the green one, based on everything I'm seeing and collecting, that's kind of what I expect the adult gizzard shad to look like next year. I'm kind of hypothesizing that that's what it's going to be, but it's going to be something like that. I don't expect it to be anything like this. I think that's going to be a big change for next year. So getting into the part that everybody likes so much, arguing over stocking rates. So how do we figure out a stocking rate? Well, we're using all this information that I was just kind of going through, and I kind of went through it real quick, but spending a lot of time with it. You got all these different parts that you're looking at. So how many you stocked recently, and how well did they survive? How's the striped bass growth doing? How's the forage base doing? How are the angler catch rates? Your angler catch rates are starting to go down. It's starting to take you longer to catch fish. What's the size structure? What's the population look like? So you're looking at all these different aspects to try and figure out what's a good stocking rate. Going through each one of those for kind of my perception for this year. The recent stocking survival, we've been stocking less than average since 2021. And that was to drop the population down to get the forage and the growth back to where it should be. And that was intended. The survival the last couple years from our netting doesn't appear that it's been up to average. It's been a little lower than average. that part wasn't intentional. I wasn't trying to kill them on purpose. They just didn't seem to do quite as well. The growth is not where we want it, but it is improving. So that's a positive side. The forage base is definitely improving. That's gotten better. Angler catch rates, it's taken longer to catch a fish, which means there's fewer fish out there to catch. And the striped bass and size age structure, that 20-year class that's really caused a lot of problems. Those fish are going to be 6 years old now, and they're starting to fade. There's going to still be a lot of them out there, but that big bulk of them is really starting to get thinned down. So the group of fish that caused a lot of this last shift with too many fish is starting to thin out. This is going way back in time, 25 years, and it's a point I wanted to make about stocking. These circles right here are years that we stocked kind of way above average. This was started back in the 90s, and it went into the early 2000s. And then that's when some of you may not know, we had a major fish striped bass kill back in 2003 that wiped out most of the decent striped bass in the lake, and our numbers were really low. So with that in mind, that we lost most of our fish, came back and stocked a lot more to get it back up. And these red shaded areas, again, this stuff looks a lot more clear on my computer when I'm right up close to it. But these shaded areas correspond with poor growth years that we had. So we had a bunch of fish, then we were getting really poor growth, and they died. So the lake didn't have that many fish in it, so we stocked a bunch in there again, and then we got real poor growth. So we backed off on things, survival went down. It finally started getting better around this time period. The bait was looking really good. The numbers were kind of low because our survival for several years there was really poor. So came back, said it looks like we got plenty of room to stock more fish again. Stocked a bunch more fish, and then we crashed and got poor growth again. So I've been going through this cycle of kind of overstocking, getting slow growth, poor health, and then dropping the numbers way back to try and get into line. Been going through this cycle for a number of years. What I'd like to do going forward is stop doing these big high stocking numbers all at one time like that, and then making everything kind of get in trouble and then have to go to really low stocking numbers to make up for it. It looks like after doing this 25 years that this range right in here is probably a really good fit for Smith Mountain Lake. And it doesn't mean we can't ever go higher if there's something really going on. But every time that we do this, we end up condensing the population, running into problems, and then have to go way down low to accommodate. That's about the end of the data, but I had questions about the tagging process or what we're finding out. I can't go through all the information and what it all means tonight because we don't have time, but I wanted to bring it back up just as a reminder to look for tags when you catch and release a fish. And if you're lucky enough and you catch a fish with a tag and it's the right color, it'll give you $150. But essentially, we tagged 333 fish, and we got tags back from 49 fish a year later. So, how are we doing on time? Well, what time was Nathan supposed to start? John?
About now.
Okay. Well, then I'm not going to take questions. It makes it easier on me.